All right, it's 2 o'clock on the dot, my time. So we'll get rolling and see about 20 folks here. Oh, it's going up fast. Okay, great. So thanks everybody for hopping on today. I My name is Dominy. First and foremost, I represent the Savvy team down in the Texas Gulf Coast. So what that means for me is the Houston area, as well as College Station, where Texas A&M is, Lake Conroe, and then also Galveston and Crystal Beach. It's a pretty widespread area, anywhere from a lake market to city to 2 different beaches. So the topic that I wanted to cover today, and this is because I've been seeing this recurring theme of folks trying to analyze their own deals, which is great. I love when buyers are trying to run their own numbers because you need to understand the numbers as well as the agents do, if not more. So we help you find the good deals, but you also need to understand why they're a good deal. But one of the big things that I've been seeing a lot is folks trying to analyze their own deals in AirDNA, trying to find what properties would work well, but they've been using either the free version of AirDNA or they haven't been using AirDNA, in my opinion, the best way. So today I'd like to walk you through how to do that and why I do those things and what it is I'm looking for when I'm looking through AirDNA to try and understand maybe why a property is performing extremely well or maybe why a property isn't performing as well as it should. So the overall topic is how I find profitable STRs in Texas without getting burned by bad data. Oh, let's see if I can go to the next. There we go. All right, that's me. This is our team across the country, growing all the time. Everyone on the team is STR experts. Just high level, taking a step back. So why STRs are more than just vacation rentals. STRs outperform traditional long-term rentals on average by 3 to 5 times the revenue. I think everybody here probably knows that, and that's why you're interested in short-term rentals in the first place. I know that's a big reason why I became interested in short-term rentals. Many high-performing STRs started as overlooked or undervalued properties, and that kind of goes hand in hand with understanding what makes a great property. And then the marketing and design are key to unlocking the full potential. So how to determine what you should buy. These don't necessarily go in a specific order. You really can start with either step one or two. Let me check the chat real quick, just in case. Okay. Um, So this is kind of the order that I laid it out. And I honestly don't always go in this order myself. So keep that in mind. So first and foremost, you want to understand your budget that you're working with, what you're pre-approved for. The first step, especially if you don't know, the first step in buying a property is getting pre-approved, working with a lender to understand what your budget is. Um, then once you understand what you're pre-approved for, consider how much cash you have available to invest in the property. And I would say you probably need to look at actually spending on the home itself for the down payment, probably about half of whatever that money is. Because you not only have to budget for the property, you also have to budget for everything else, from the furnishings to the design to the amenities. Depending on the market that you invest in, that may be a pretty large budget if you want to compete with the top properties in that market. Number two is the time to hit AirDNA. So what are your cash on cash targets? What are your goals for revenue? What are your profit targets? If you don't know, maybe you should start if you are willing to pay for an AirDNA subscription for a month or two while you try to find that property, especially if you have a good idea of the market that you want to be in, or maybe you just want to research that market to understand whether it's a market you really want to be in. Maybe pay for a couple months specific to that market on AirDNA and just go to that market first and foremost and start looking around to understand what properties make and what makes it a top property, and then try to get a gauge on how much money it would cost, how much you would need to invest to create a equivalent property or a competitor. So that kind of goes hand in hand with number three, educate yourself on the real estate market. So how much would I need to invest to make 150K? Not only get an idea of what amenities you'd have to have. Say you were looking in Galveston, and I'm gonna give an example. I'm gonna do a demonstration in a minute on AirDNA myself and show you what I'm talking about. But um, say you are looking to make 150K a year revenue on that property, you need to understand where it is where you would need to buy, how big of a home you need to buy, maybe how updated of a home you need to buy, the design level and the amenities, and then maybe some other factors that may be important in driving that revenue, such as the proximity to attractions, or maybe the beach, or maybe it's the mountains with the snow, depending on which market you're in. You need to understand why people go there and what they're going there for. You really have to know that information to really understand where and what you should invest in. All right, so why AirDNA could be misleading. It is very, very important if you do subscribe to AirDNA that you understand and learn how to use it to your advantage and how to maximize its capabilities. So many buyers, and this is kind of a reason why some of the data could be misleading. So many buyers didn't up their game as new competitors raised the bar post-COVID. As most of you already know, probably already know. Right after COVID, there was a huge influx of supply in most, if not all, vacation markets around the country with short-term rentals because of low interest rates and earlier on lower priced real estate, and coupling that with the highly increased demand for short-term rentals in a very short period of time right after COVID when everybody's trying to travel. Everybody saw it as a lot of people saw it as an opportunity to make a quick buck. But as the supply grew over time, the level of competition rose as well because the cream rises to the top. And if you want to continue making the money that you did, you have to continue improving your property over time. And a lot of people didn't realize that, or maybe didn't understand that, and they may have also not had enough knowledge to use tools like AirDNA to track what properties can make or have an idea of what their property should be making. So the problem, if you don't use AirDNA to its full potential, you could be underestimating the potential of your prospective investment, leading you to believe that there aren't any good deals left. So I will give you an example of that in just a second. The last one is identifying top performers in your market will help you quickly identify the bar for success and how you should invest your money. Kind of touched on that a minute ago. But let me see. Stop wasting time analyzing average properties. And so after this slide, I'm going to give an example, a demonstration on AirDNA. So once you have a market, maybe earmark, maybe you haven't fully decided on that market to invest in, but you like it, you know something about it, you feel like it would be a good fit for you. And let's say you go and subscribe to AirDNA because you want to further research that market for yourself. The first thing you need to do after you go to that market on AirDNA, after you've pulled it up, is filter out the bad data. So you need to remove the properties that have been available for less than a year, ideally, at least 6 months, ideally over a year, and the properties that have less than 10 reviews. And the reason being is that a lot of times AirDNA does a pretty good job of filtering out the dates that have been blocked by owners and not booked. But sometimes their algorithm and their system incorrectly reads those as book nights. And so, for example, in College Station, people will block out their calendar for the entire year except for 5 or 6 weekends during football season and rent their house out during that time. And AirDNA may incorrectly read that as book nights and say that the home makes a lot more money than it actually does. And in markets like college towns like that, it can be tricky understanding what homes truly make because there's a lot of that happens. Um, Generally, in traditional vacation markets, you don't have to worry about it as much, but there are times where owners may decide that they're going to stay in their home for 3 or 4 months, during the off season or something like that, and they just decide they're going to live there for a while. Those are things that if you do enough research and you to get an idea of what a home could make, you can kind of identify those outliers. But it can be tricky if you don't have a very good grasp of that already. So analyze the top properties. Is there a 4 bedroom that's producing more than a five? Try and do some digging to understand why. So these are a lot of the factors that come into play. So understand the level of competition on design, amenities, the bed and bath count, not just the bed count. Bath count also matters. If you're sleeping 20 people, 20 people don't want 2 bathrooms to share between all of them. You need the bathrooms to support the amount of people that you sleep. The location and the proximity to attractions, we already touched on that, and the number of people the top priority properties sleep for that market. So it's not just the bedroom count. So say it's a 4 bedroom that is outperforming a 5 bedroom. One of the first things I go to look at is how many people do those two properties sleep. It may be a 5 bedroom home, but if they have a king bed in every single bedroom, it only sleeps 10 people. And there isn't just one way to skin a cat. 10 people may be totally fine, depending on the market and depending on who you're marketing to, that may be totally fine. But in a lot of markets, um, that 4 bedroom, maybe they have a bunk room and maybe another room they have, a queen bed with a day bed or something like that. And it sleeps like 15 people, 12, 15 people. Odds are that 4 bedroom is going to make more money over the long haul if all other things are equal, um, than that 5 bedroom would. In general, more heads equals more money. How much money would it take to create a competing STRs? Yeah, so let's jump over to AirDNA and I will show you what I'm talking about. And in just a second, I'm going to shut up and see if anybody has any questions because I don't like being the only person talking. Okay, I don't see any questions for now. So I've already pulled up Galveston as a market because it's a big market that I cover. Um, and let's just assume that I don't know anything about Galveston. The very first thing that I want to do when I'm looking at AirDNA is go to my listings. Right now, I have it filtered 1 to 5 bedroom, up to 4 bathrooms, and then any type of property. And I was probably looking at a 5 bedroom at the time and wanted to make sure that that was the data that I was looking at. So let's say, for example, you've seen a home or maybe your agent has sent you a home off the MLS that is a 5 bedroom home. I would filter it for 1 to 5. And let's say it's a 3 bath, or let's say it's a 4 bath, and we'll just leave it at 1 to 4. That way, you're not looking at properties that are bigger than yours. At least you're looking at up to your size or less. And then performance wise, I filter out right now I have it filtered out for under 6 months. Um, and then I also have it filtered out for less than 10 reviews. So I've already done that work. I usually do not filter for amenities because there are times where somebody will have a hot tub and they'll say they have a pool, or maybe they have maybe they have amenities and they don't log them as amenities. So it will filter out those properties. And I want to see as many properties as I possibly can, as long as it's good data. So the next step I take, I don't look at average revenue because why? I don't care what the average revenue is. I don't care what the guy that bought in 2021 a 3.2 that looks like a suburban home that has beige walls and no amenities is making in Galveston, because I know that I'll do a much better job of that. I'll pay more attention to the way I'm setting the home up. I will add games. I will, maybe add a pool, maybe add a hot tub. I'll do a lot better job than what he's doing. So this average revenue makes absolutely no difference to me. The other next least important factor to me is the occupancy rate, because that guy who I was just talking about, who bought a beige suburban home in Galveston, that's a 3.2 that isn't really specifically marketed to anyone in particular, his occupancy is probably going to be terrible because when people travel to a vacation market, they're not looking for a home that looks just like the one that they live in. They're looking for a vacation home. They're looking for something different than what they're in on a day-to-day basis. And they're also willing to pay a premium for it. So that occupancy rate makes absolutely no difference to me. I'm looking to make money, not fill my house. Of course, I want people in my house, but more than anything else, I want to make as much money as I can on my property. And I would be willing to bet you would agree. The average daily rate, again, like a lot of this stuff is meaningless to me. And that's exactly why I go straight to top short-term rentals. Now, there is some nuance to it because you have to understand what type of home you can afford. You have to understand what this top property would cost, right? And if you don't, you can always go on the MLS and look and see what's out there for sale and what the price would be. And say this home was a $2.5 million house to make 250K. I don't have a pro forma pulled up right in front of me, but that probably wouldn't be that great of an investment. So what I'm looking for are pockets in the market that would be advantageous to invest in. And this home in particular is a perfect example of that, in my opinion. So it's only a 3-2. It is beachfront, but it sleeps 14 people. They did a great job of maximizing what this home can do and how many it's capable of sleeping and providing some entertainment outside of just being beachfront. And it reflects it in their numbers. The 82% occupancy, $688 average daily rate, over 206K annual revenue is phenomenal for a three-bedroom in Galveston. This home, on average, would run you probably somewhere around 8 to 850 in that range. So, just to give you a quick glance, this is kind of giving you a little insight into what I do on a day-to-day basis to analyze these properties. I've looked at this house like 1,000 times, so I can tell you everything it has. But I want to show you because they make it's not a fluke that they make $200,000 a year on this house. It's beautifully designed. They have great photography. They have great pricing. But the biggest thing that they did right on this property was they amenitized the ground level space. Even though it's a beachfront home, they still maximize the space that they have. And this is what 99% of the beachfront homes especially do not do because they think they don't need to, and or they think that, oh, when a storm comes, it's just going to wash it all away. And that may be entirely true, right? And some people may be more open to doing this than others. But what I see this as is an investment. I want to try and find some more photos of that downstairs space. The interior is beautiful too, but I really wanted to hone in. They did a great job in this bunk room also, but I really wanted to hone in on the outdoor space. Okay, so you can see, at least in this picture, you can see they've got a fire pit. So they've got, and I think they have some chairs to put around the fire pit. They have a little putting green, and they also have a little swim spa underneath the home and a little bar space. And it's just nicely done, right? It's not anything crazy over the top, but it's nice. And they paid some attention to it. And they did artificial turf all around there so that you don't have to worry about walking around in the dirt. And they also have a little fenced off area. Looks like probably for like a little dog space, pet space. So they covered their basis on being pet friendly. They've also, you don't have to necessarily heat up a swim spa during the summer. You can just let it run and use it as a pool. But it's a big differentiator for this property that most people don't want to spend the money on, right? And all in, you may be spending like $20,000 to do that bottom level space. But I can promise you, you're going to make more than $20,000 in the very first year that you have that property and you're using it in that way. Again, it's like it's not one dimensional. It's a fully encompassing formula that you have to create to make that kind of money on a property. But they did, it's not anything crazy over the top, right? This wood paneling, they just painted it white and they've got the beams going. It's beautiful though, and they have the windows and the views of the water, right? Those are all factors that factor into that. But that's a big thing that I look for. And let's say that you can't afford that. That would be the next step that I would take is I would look for pockets in the market that could yield great returns, but don't necessarily require $800,000, $1 million to make that kind of money. Um, and we did that with our own property, actually. And let me hop over to actually, that was the next slide anyway. So this is our own property that we somewhat flipped in Galveston, renovated it after we bought it at least. We bought this down in Galveston about 3 years ago. These are the before pictures. At the time, the home was making around $40,000 a year in revenue. It was very bad. It was very poorly managed. They weren't using dynamic pricing or any decent marketing. You know, they got beige walls everywhere, brown cabinets. So the first thing that we did when we bought it was we painted the interior white. You know, we brightened it up inside. My wife wanted to use a little mid-century modern retro, give it a little flair of something different that the market didn't have at the time. And and I think it really paid off. You know, we put in a one of those digital fireplaces with the paneling around it. The downstairs was a really large garage. We converted it to a game room and put in a mini split. And then we put in the pool in the backyard. And we did all that. Let's see if I can find the home that drove that decision making. Um, we did all of that because of this home. And at the time, this house was making anywhere between 150 and 185 a year. And let's see, yeah, there's the picture. So it's a very similar home where it was a they listed it as a 5 bedroom and they put in the pool and they converted the garage to a game room. And so I saw, okay, if they can do that and make that kind of money, how can I replicate that? Because that's a great formula to make really good returns, but not spend $1 million to do it. And so we came across this house and it was priced at 640. And we understood we were going to have to put in a good amount of money into it after we bought it, but it wasn't $1 million house, but yet we're still making 175K revenue on it on a year-over-year basis. So I thought that that would be a good example of showing how it doesn't necessarily take a ton of money to make really good returns. So yeah, so kind of moving on from AirDNA, does anybody have any questions on AirDNA before I move on? I'll probably refer back to it at some point, but okay, are we good? All right, looks like we're good. Um, where were we? I may have missed this or cleaning fee. Yes, cleaning fees are included in revenue estimates on AirDNA, and they're all generally cleaning fees are included in almost anyone's revenue estimates because usually when people are pulling revenue, it's your gross revenue. So in general, I take off like it depends on the property. You know, if it's a large property that has a four or $500 cleaning fee, it could be 20 grand that you need to take off of that revenue estimate from AirDNA when running your pro forma. Can you break down the purchase price, rehab furnishing, and all costs per deal? Yeah, sure. So the purchase price was 638. Of course, this was 3 years ago. So prices, well, actually, prices are lower now than they were then. You'd probably get a better deal now than you would then. We paid 638. We got that included a new roof and two new AC units on the home because it needed a lot of work. That's what it took for us to buy it. The rehab and furnishing. So all of that, like including the pool, everything included was somewhere around 125 to 150K. I'd have to go back and look to know for sure. So we're somewhere around 775 all in, including our investment after the fact with the rehab. We redid like all of the bathrooms just about. Um, yeah, furnishing, yeah, somewhere around 150, that's including all of it. So that was, yeah, it's made good returns for us. Our target on that house was 50K a year, just like Bill Faith preaches. Your target 50K a year profit. That's been our goal, and we've been right around there a year after debt service. AirDNA must be grading property amongst other investment opportunities. So what AirDNA? Oh, I should have covered that. Thank you for saying that, Scott. So the way AirDNA works is they have an API agreement with both Airbnb and VRBO, and they have a agreement where they're able to pull booking information from those two booking platforms, and their own team compiles all of that data and puts it in a way that it's digestible and summarizes that data for folks to see on their platform. So, say I make 100K from Airbnb this year and I make 50K from VRBO this year, they'll pull all of that, compile it, and then they'll that's what the 150K is what AirDNA will show you. It's not perfect. Some of it is based on estimates. There's various factors that are at play that they don't have full insight into. Like I said, block days sometimes come across as book days from owners, and there will be other things where it's not 100% accurate. Most of the time, it's pretty accurate though. And again, like the more that you use it, the more you can kind of get a gauge for what properties can make and whether, and you could get that if you use it enough, you get better at seeing what the outliers are. So, for example, and you can also get a better gauge on what it is that's driving a home to do better than the others or maybe worse than the others. So like this one, I know they had a lot of really bad reviews. They even got taken down from Airbnb for a while, and that probably has played a big factor into why their revenues dipped as much as it has. But Oh, another thing that I should have covered is even after you pick your market, every time you change the map view, it updates your results on your top properties based on that specific map view that you're in. So let's say you really love Jamaica Beach. It will only show you the top properties based on your filters for that specific market. I really love that feature. That's relatively new to the platform, and I really like that a lot because it makes it easy to pan around and say, "Oh, let's see if homes over here do better." Right? Yeah. Are there any other questions from anybody? I hope I didn't miss anything. I use this so much, I glaze over a lot of it. But like the perfect example, this one's like making. Can you repeat that feature? I'm not sure what you mean, Rachel. Can you explain? Are you talking about the panning over the map? Okay. So what I was talking about was what I really love that AirDNA has recently added is that you can pick a market, say like Galveston, and it will initially take you to that market. Just to show you again. This is the macro market, but let me filter it down to actually Galveston. So this is the entire island of Galveston. But let's say you really want something on the West End because homes on the West End of Galveston are different than they are in the East End. They're more traditional beach homes, and you can actually get something that's beachfront in Galveston. Let's say you really like Jamaica Beach. So you can zoom in on the map, and it will only show you the top properties in Jamaica Beach for the filters that I've specified. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Um, let's see. I think more will come to mind as we keep going, but who's your ideal guest? So so the zooming filters the property based on that view. Yes, exactly. It filters the properties based on exactly what you're looking at. So who's your ideal guest? Yeah, so this is something that you may learn as you use AirDNA. That's one way. Some markets are a little, you need to be a little more specific than others in defining who that target, some people call it your avatar. Identifying who that target guest would be. So maybe like a single family, or maybe um, a two family, like small family setup. So you may have like one bunk room with two other rooms that have king size beds. So one for each set of parents and one bunk room for the kids. But the point that we're getting at is that you need to have a clearly defined guest in mind that you're setting that home up for. Otherwise, you're setting it up for no one. And it kind of goes back to kind of like macro size marketing principles in general. You can't market to everyone. You have to pick some segment of the market that you want to sell your home to as a vacation rental for them to enjoy. So if you want to go all adult, I feel like that's kind of been a growing trend in some markets around the country is adult only property. You know, you may like focus more on a bar setup and maybe a coffee bar in the bedrooms. And obviously, the size of your beds will play a factor as well. In doing that setup, you probably want to do just king size beds. Adults don't typically love bunk beds. And understanding once. So first going back to AirDNA, or whether you're working with your agent and just talking with them about it, is understanding the types of property setups, the sizes of properties, all that stuff that make the most revenue in your market. At least that's what I would be looking for as a consumer is making as much as I possibly can with the funds that I have available to me at that time. So whatever amount of money that is, I want to do the I want to make the biggest impact that I can. So understanding the ones, comfort, amenities, design, location. I think we've kind of covered that. Align the property experience with their needs. Interior and experience design that attracts guests. So this is highly market dependent. But one thing that is the case no matter where you are is that the interior design of a home has become much, much, much more important over the last couple years. So it started out with any kind of home can make money. Then homes, that have some level of amenities to them, maybe some games or outdoor games, or just some outdoor space at all. The industry and markets have slowly matured over time. The homes with pools do very, very well in my part of the country. No matter where you are, whether it's Houston, Galveston, it's generally a hot, warm climate. So most guests really value the pool. But design is kind of in my eyes, design has kind of been like that final big pillar that in a lot of markets hasn't really been touched on a whole lot just yet, but it's quickly becoming more and more important. So the comfort and functionality plus the Instagram worthy style. It's it's important to create a comfortable space that is in most cases different than what they would have at their own home, but yet a space that people want to spend their time in, comfortable and attractive at the same time. And of course, it needs to fit the market that you're in. It needs to be, the tricky part is making it Instagram worthy without being cheesy. So please don't put the big green vine wall on as your accent wall in the middle of the living room. I've seen that so many times and it's so bad. The light up signs on the green vine wall. I feel like that was like the first touch of design in interiors in a lot of areas. And yeah, if you're gonna work on design, put some thought behind it. and invest your dollars, invest at least some of your money into that design to at least understand what your market is commanding. So small touches make big impressions, lighting, art, bedding, and amenities. And I can make a great example of that. So one of the first things that we did when we bought our home a few years ago, um, I the one of the first things, sorry, I got distracted by the chat. One of the first things that we did when we bought our home a few years ago, for example, was replace all the fans and all of the lights in the house because all of the fixtures were ancient, and that is one of the cheapest, easiest ways to make your home look a lot more updated and give the impression that you care. To me, that's like one of the biggest underlying messages that you send with your design is that you care. You care about the cleanliness, you care about how your home feels and looks to other people. So yeah, fans, lights. If you want to take it a step further with remodeling, you could do like bathroom fixtures, and things like that. But bedding, yeah, bedding and art on the walls is also a big thing. And it doesn't have to cost a ton of money. But you don't want grandma's quilt on your bed. Maybe there may be some exceptions to that. There may be some mountain markets out there where that's not necessarily a terrible thing. But in most markets, um, especially, with having millennials booking the stays, and maybe even younger than that. You want updated bedding. You want to give the impression that you take pride in your home and you care, um, and you want other people to feel that. So the design choice is guided by guest avatar expectation. Yeah, exactly. So the interior design the choices that you make for the interior design need to mesh with the guest that you're targeting for your stays. Prime example of that home I was just showing. The bunk room has rainbows on the walls, right? It's colorful, it's fun, and there's almost no one doing this down there. And this is so simple. You could do this yourself if you have the time available. It's not a hard thing to do, but most people just don't understand the value in doing it. It creates a fun, exciting, inviting space where most likely the kids will be sleeping. Um, all right, so how design and marketing drive revenue. So first, property design, marketing, bookings, and revenue. So obviously, first and foremost, you want to buy the property that makes sense for you. It is almost like the blank canvas for what you want to create. Um, and then your design, that's kind of a layer over the property. And then once you have that product prepared, you want to optimize the way that you market that property, whether that be on Airbnb or VRBO or direct bookings. Um, Ideally you do all three to spread your property out there and get as many views and impressions from other folks that are looking for somewhere to stay as possible. But it's not just being listed. It's having professional photography. It's having understanding the order of the photos that your listing should have based on that specific property. If you have a pool, you better not have one picture of that pool as the very last picture in your listings, right? You want people to see that. You want that to jump out to people when they're scrolling through properties. You need photos and scenes that are going to catch people's attention. There's tons of properties out there. You gotta do as much as you can to stand out from the crowd. And then obviously the listing description, making sure that you give a thorough description of your property in the description in the listing. But it's way more important to have descriptions in your photos and have great photos of your property that highlight that property as much as humanly possible. Because I forget the statistics, but like 99% of people, it's high. make a decision on where they're going to book purely based on the photos. A lot of people don't even go and read the description of the property before they decide to book. They'll book it and then they'll go back and read it. So you need to make sure that all of the important things that you want to make sure people see and understand about your property are in your photos. And if they're not, you need to make sure it's in the description in that photo, and hope that they see it there. And then yeah, and then the other factor with the listings is dynamic pricing. So you absolutely have to use dynamic pricing in today's world. The by far the most popular tool out there is Price Labs. It is a third-party software for your first property. It costs $20 a month, and I think it's $5 or $10 a month for any property after that to add on. And there are a million different rules and options that you can use to set that up. That's honestly an entire webinar in itself. But they do have resources out there online on how to learn how to use it. And then there's also third parties that will manage your pricing for you if you'd rather do that. If you do want to self-manage, but you don't want to take care of the pricing yourself. So that's the revenue management also. So how to identify overlooked properties. So once you get a sense for what a property will make, you can start identifying issues, or maybe a property that's been sitting for a while. Maybe it doesn't have good photography. Maybe there's opportunities to make an office into an extra bedroom or make that office into a game room that a lot of people just kind of didn't understand or didn't realize that maybe it has an extra room that they didn't list on the listing, but you see it in the pictures. Um, Identifying all these little gaps that you can use as an opportunity to add value to will oftentimes get you that deal on real estate that you may not have been able to get otherwise. You know, if that home was listed as a four-bedroom instead of a three because it had an office, but it just didn't have a closet. So, like in Texas, it has to have a closet to be listed as a bedroom. Um, that could be a great point of opportunity for you as well. Let's see. Consider the location, unique features, or untapped demand. Kind of touched on that already. And then leverage the data, the occupancy, nearby attractions, and guest demographics. And that goes back to AirDNA. You know, that's exactly what AirDNA is for. So, key takeaways. And then, you know, if there's any other questions, feel free to chime in. Spot overlay properties with STR potential. Obviously, use marketing to drive bookings fast. Design interiors that delight your target guest, and combine the design and marketing for long-term success. So, are there any other questions around AirDNA or how to pick the right place or how to most optimally set up your listing? Let's see. Are there other tools available besides AirDNA? There are, but a lot of them I honestly don't really trust. Um, You know, you can subscribe to AirDNA, at least you used to. I think if you call them, it may not necessarily be on their website as an option, but there are a lot of things that they offer as options that they just don't publish online. But at least the last time I subscribed, you could subscribe specifically to a market, and that was significantly cheaper than subscribing to the entire US or even an entire state. But Lynn, please try and keep in mind, um, if you're buying a property, you're going to be spending like, I mean, especially like furnishings and everything included, you're at least spending $50,000 on that home. To spend, say, three, five, $600 for a month to pick the right property, to me, is worth every single penny. $500 to avoid a bad investment. Of course, you're working with agents that help you with this, but this is for those that want to do their own research, and get a better understanding for what properties make in that market. If you're going to use a tool like AirDNA, to me is worth every penny. Okay, cool. Ashley, I don't know if the recording will be sent out. I can get confirmation on that and let you know. I do believe the recording will be posted somewhere. Okay, it will be sent. Thank you, Lou. Okay, anything else from anybody? Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for coming. It was a great turnout. All right. Well, if y'all have any other questions, yes, I'm in the Gulf Coast, but if you have any questions, it doesn't matter what market you're in, feel free to reach out to me. I I should have posted there's my phone number. So my phone number's on the deck. Y'all feel free to text me whenever. I love helping people do this stuff because I don't want to see anybody else make a bad purchase. Okay, awesome. Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a good rest of the day.